Good day and positive vibrations. This is Major and welcome to Major TV Let's Talk in conjunction with news, facts, and comments. Today, I want to bring to you an interview between Sean Hannity on Fox and Professor Cornell West, who's running for the presidency. Hannity felt a certain kind of way because Cornell West had tweeted about it was a racist move to remove former Harvard President Claudine Gay from her seat as president at Harvard. And it was a big debate about the protests and comments that was made that was considered anti-Semitic or talking about the annihilation of Israel. And West called him out for being hypocritical because even though he said he didn't condone it, right, he didn't want to accept the fact that it was racist behind the attacks against Claudine Gay. And when he went talking about the occupation of Palestine and Gaza and how Hannity being Irish background, that he should understand that because that would happen to him, with Britain and what have you. And it got into an ugly situation, right? Whereas Professor West got brutal with him and was honest with him about it, right? But whites are in denial about a lot of things was going on with Israel, Palestinians, and period. But before I can really share that interview, I want to share an excerpt of someone that I think shed great light on the discussion we're having, and it's important that we bring full context to what's about to be said. I want to share with you an excerpt of an interview of Noam Chronsky. He is an American professor, a public intellectual known for his work in linguistics and political activism and social criticism. And he speaks about the United States and Israel. Listen.
There are two states that rampage in the Middle East, carry out aggression, violence, terrorist acts, illegal acts constantly. They're both huge nuclear weapon states, and their nuclear armaments are not being considered.
And who exactly are you referring to there?
The United States and Israel, the two major rogue states in the world. I mean, there's a reason why in international polls run by U.S. polling agencies, the main ones, the United States is regarded as the greatest threat to world peace by an overwhelming margin. No other country's even close. Incidentally, it's kind of interesting that the U.S. media refused to publish this.
Resigned this week amid serious allegations of anti-Semitism, multiple allegations of plagiarism. Take a look at your screen. Here's an example of alleged plagiarism discovered by the Harvard Crimson, and here's yet another example uncovered by the Washington Free Beacon, and these are just a few of the close to 50 total allegations of plagiarism made against the Harvard president, that's President Gay. Now, yet many on the left, they are insisting that Claudine Gay was forced to resign for no reason and was the victim of racist attacks, including my next guest, Dr. Cornell West, who tweeted after Gay resigned, quote, "How sad but predictable that the same figures and forces enabling the ethnic cleansing and genocidal attacks on Palestinians in Gaza, Ackman, Blum, Summers, and others, push out the first black woman president of Harvard. This racism against both Palestinians and black people is undeniable and despicable, and I have experienced similar attacks from the same forces in academia, and too many of my colleagues remaining silent And when big money dictates university policy and raw power dictates foreign policy, the moral bankruptcy of American education and democracy looms large, but we shall remain strong in our fight for truth, justice, and love. Oh, my friend, former friend, I don't know if we're friends anymore, Dr. Cornell West, I mean, you always call me Brother Hannity, and I know you teach divinity, but Dr. West, really? This is really beneath you, if you don't mind me being very blunt. For you to go to the race card and say that Dr. Gay was pushed out because of racism, that's not why she was pushed out. You know the code of conduct as well as anybody at Harvard. You almost got tenure at Harvard. You understand it well. And you know that if similar comments about the elimination or genocide of any, quote, identity group, African Americans, people in the LGBTQ plus community, if any of these comments that were made against the Jewish people were made against other groups, you would not be saying that's racism. And she had a moment where she could have stood out and strongly condemned it and not supported it, and not said, well, it depends on the context. She would still be president today. Why did you sink to this low and claim racism?
Well, I didn't sink to that level, though, brother. Let me tell you exactly what I said, and I hope you understand.
I have it in front of me
very clearly. One, no, but I know Sister Gay. She doesn't have an anti-Semitic bone in her body. She didn't speak strong enough. I had a critique of that in the Boston Globe. It was a weak response at the Congressional Committee, but that does not mean that she's anti-Semitic. It doesn't mean she ought to resign. You know and I know there's been attempts to impose tremendous pressures on universities with big money donors dictating various conditions under which they will give, and there's been attempts to reshape universities. Now, you and I know there's orthodoxies in the universities that I'm against all orthodoxies. There's no doubt about that. But the very notion that you think it was about plagiarism, that's window dressing. Lawrence Tribe plagiarized from Peter J. Abrams much more than she did, and he remained a prize professor at Harvard Law. Doris Kearns plagiarized. There's a whole host of folk who plagiarize and don't get this kind of vicious treatment. When she says in her notes, she's called the N-word a zillion times, racial animus, death threats, people coming at her with white supremacists attacking bombardment. That's what she said. You're going to say it had nothing to do with race? It had nothing to do with race, brother? Come on, come on.
You know me a long time. I condemn anybody that ever said anything racist about her or to her or threatened her. That cannot exist. You're hearing that directly from me. But what you're saying here is not what you're addressing.
That means you criticize the people who were trashing her. You criticize the people who were trashing her.
No. You said it was racism that resulted in her being removed. Now, also, if you believe in rigorous academic standards, there are up to 50 allegations of her plagiarizing. Now, if a student of yours plagiarized something, I would imagine they'd probably get an F. I would imagine they might even be brought up for disciplinary action, maybe even kicked out of school. But the reason that she should have been disciplined here, and I don't call for firings, is because her answer was pathetic. Antifada, from the river to the sea, they're talking about eliminating an entire group of people. That should be unacceptable, and you should be leading that charge, not blaming the people that were angered by her remarks.
I stand against any genocide, brother. I stand against the genocide of your Irish brothers and sisters. I stand against the genocide of black people. I stand against the genocide of Jews. But I also stand against the genocide of Palestinians. And it's no accident that some of the same people who were behind pushing her out, Ackman himself, Summers himself, whole host of Bloom and others who have been against affirmative action, they also won't say a mumbling word about the genocide against Palestinians.
Well,
so would you tell me you're concerned about genocide?
Donors.
Have you said a mumbling word about the genocide against Palestinians, brother?
Hang on.
Have you said a word against the Palestinians?
I'll tell you right now.
The genocide Palestinians? I want to hear you say a word
had
about
the elected leaders in Gaza not committed the act of murder and terror against 1,400 Israelis, which would be the equivalent of 40,000
against the Irish,
which would be the equivalent of 40,000 Americans. Let me tell you something. If anyone killed 40,000 Americans in a day, I would want to fight and win the war. They started that fight. They're the ones that use innocent people as human shields. They had their headquarters under a hospital.
10,000 children in 2 months, brother? You come from an Irish people who've been treated
What do you
so
want?
bad.
What do you expect Israel to do?
Let's be honest about it.
What do you
Let's
expect?
be honest about it.
Israel was a victim of terror, and you were blaming the victim.
Siege and end the occupation. You end the siege and end the occupation.
Excuse me, it's not an occupation. Israel has not occupied Gaza for haven't been in there for many years. They've offered them money, they've offered them aid.
Brother, no.
I've been there.
Cuckoo land. You live in cuckoo land. There's no occupation
cuckoo land
at
is
all,
where you
brother.
live.
Come on.
No. Well, if you look at these times, where did the money for the
No,
tunnels?
let's get back to occupation.
Hang on.
Let's talk
Where
about
did the
occupation.
money
If
from
you
the
can't
terror
acknowledge the
tunnels
occupation, then
Professor, you gotta-
it's hard to proceed.
let me ask the
It's hard to
question.
proceed, my brother. It's hard to proceed.
Where did the money from for the tunnels of terror, where did that come from? Where did the electricity come from? That came from America. That came from Israel to better the life and the people of Gaza. But Hamas, the terrorist group that has sworn the destruction of Israel, used that money, built their command centers onto hospitals. They fired their missiles from schools and hospitals, and they used all the people in Gaza as human shields. They committed acts of terror. They started a war, and they're losing the war.
I do not defend Hamas. Hamas commits crimes against people. I'm asking you to tell the truth. If people cut off water, if people cut off electricity and cut off food, and you say there's no occupation, if people control air and sea and land and there's no occupation, you don't want to listen to the truth.
There's no occupation.
You don't want to listen to the truth.
It's you're factually inaccurate. Now I'm going to ask you a last question.
You're wrong as two left shoes,
Harry Truman used 2 bombs, one in Hiroshima and one in Nagasaki. It ended World War II against Japan. Let me ask you, is that the right decision?
Those were war crimes, my brother. I am consistent. And we need to sit down and have a long discussion of what an occupation is, because you come from an occupied people, and you ought to be ashamed that you can't point out occupation when other people are occupied.
You are